My name is Edward L. McNally. I was born July 19, 1923. This date is important because several interesting things happened to me leading up to this date in 1944. I was attending college in a small liberal arts school on Beacon Hill in Boston on the morning of December 7th, 1941, when we heard that the Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor. The whole nation agreed that it was time to fight back. Lines formed around the stations where you could enlist, and I immediately asked my mother and my parents' permission to join the Marines. Luckily for me, my mother requested that I not join the Marines. Within a few weeks, the requirement for Air Force pilot training dropped from college graduate, 21 and over, or attending college, to 18 and high school graduate. Well, since I met those requirements, I was sworn in as at the time as a private in the Air Corps, making $50 a month. And they told me that as soon as training stations were available, I could start my pilot training, which I did in July of 1942. I trained as a pilot, not able to ever fly a plane without my instructor, and I trained as a bombardier. I received my commission, bombardier's wings, and second lieutenant's commission on July 15, 1943. For the next year, I trained in various positions in an Air Force crew, including navigator. I was assigned to the 15th Air Force, flying out of Pantanella, Italy in 1944. On my 15th mission, I flew to Ploesti, Romania, to bomb the oil fields and refineries, which were supplying approximately 60% of the oil to the German war machine. We lost an engine, severely damaged. We flew low and slow back to our air base in Italy. This mission was deemed exceptional, and we were awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. Our tail gunner received the cross in Italy in 1944. The other 9 members of the crew received it in a ceremony in Washington, D.C. on April 24, 2007. Now I'll tell you a little more about how the Americans felt when we heard that we had dropped the atom bomb at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. By this time, the war in Europe was over. I had been rescued from a German prisoner of war camp by the advancing Russians and was safely back in the States. But I was preparing to again be assigned to a bomber crew bombing Japan if the war had continued. Now, how did people feel about dropping the atom bomb on Japan? We were about 99% in favor of it. Those who said there might have been some other way to win the war did not really understand the fanaticism of the Japanese people. The island of Okinawa was approximately 150 miles from Japan. The Japanese dug in and fought for that island with fury. there were thousands of Japanese who were encamped in caves. They were given the opportunity to come out. Recordings in Japanese were played day and night, but they chose to die instead. Many of them burned by liquid fuel, and just a handful, 20 or 30, were captured, gave up, surrendered. As the Americans approached the main cities on the island, the citizens lined up, walked to the edge of a precipice, and died on the rocks below. We say, think of what would have happened if we had attacked the islands. Thousands and hundreds of thousands of Americans possibly would have died. Should we have tried to drop an atom bomb on an island in the Pacific with a guest list of diplomats from all over the world? What if the attempt had failed? At any rate, the American people were behind the dropping of the atom bomb 98%. It ended the war, and we were all happy. I'm going to ask a few more questions, answer a few more questions. Stop it for a minute. Prospect, one of the reasons the war went on was the fact that the Americans, the Russians, and the English decided that we would ask for unconditional surrender. We would offer no terms to either the Germans or the Japanese. Now, unconditional surrender to the Japanese meant that they would have to give up their holy Emperor Hirohito. Possibly he would be subject to war crimes, trials, and this was impossible for the Japanese to accept. But that did not change our initial attempt to get unconditional surrender. And that's why it was necessary to drop the atom bomb. Now, it turned out later that the Japanese surrendered due to the effects of the atom bomb, but we decided that they could keep their Emperor Hirohito, keep him in as a religious symbol, and from then on the Japanese were allies of the Americans.